please. I am 100% responsible for my life.
I am 100% responsible for my life.
I am 100% responsible for my happiness.
I am 100% responsible for my happiness.
I have the freedom to choose
I have freedom to choose
how I respond
How I respond
to any situation.
to any situation.
There we go. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our honored guests, this is what Dr. Steven Covey called be proactive. That is the very first habit of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Be proactive. We have that response ability. We are response able. See, he did split those words, response able. We are responsible, and we have response ability to respond and ability to respond. I'm going to share 3 little stories to demonstrate or to tell a little more about being proactive. The first example is I heard from Shiva Kera, one of the famous author. There were 2 sons from a same family, from one family. One turns out to be a drug addict and the other turns to be a fine gentleman. So they go and interview these 2 grown-up sons. First they go to the drug addict, and say, what is your story? And he says, my dad. What about your dad? My dad was a drug addict. He used to drink and he used to beat us up while we were kids. All the time. And what do you expect from me? I'm just that. Okay. And they go to the second son and ask, what about your story? He says, my father. What about your father? He says, my father was a drug addict and he used to beat us up while we were children. We grew up that way all the time. Okay. So I decided then I'm not going to be that way. See, these 2 sons, they are brought up in the same family, under the same situation and scenarios, but one turned out to be a drug addict just like his father, and the other turned out to be a fine gentleman. So we all have ability to choose to respond no matter what the situation and circumstance we are in. The second story, I read it from the same, from the book by Dr. Steven Covey, 7 Habits, in the same chapter, Be Proactive. He tells about the story of Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was a psychiatrist and a Jew, and he was imprisoned in the death camps in Nazi Germany. It was a tough time. It was death camp. So he lost his entire family, his parents, siblings. It was a very painful experience and torturing time. But somehow they chose him for experiments. They didn't put him to death, but they chose to experiment Dr. Viktor Frankl. They stripped him naked and put on a bed, and he said, in that moment, in that situation, I focused on what I would do after I'm released from the death camps, that I would be going and teaching my students about this. He saw all different reactions. Some were behaving like animals, and some were like sages. So he decided, even in that extreme, that was the moment he decided, still I had the freedom to choose, no matter what the situation is. And he came and wrote the famous book, Search for Meaning. It turned out to be a very, very popular inspirational book. I'm yet to read it, but I heard a lot about it. In the third example, the third story, Dr. Covey tells in the same habit, be proactive. We can increase our proactivity by increasing our circle of influence. How there is another saying which says, nobody cares for us unless they know how much we care for them. So how can we care others? How can we influence others? By taking a proactive step to increase our circle of influence, we can improve our proactiveness. He shares a story about a corporate story. There was a manager who was very smart, intelligent, creative. However, he had a very dictating style. He used to say, you do this, you do this. And everybody used to curse him. Who would do on the demanding tone? So all of them, they used to gather the fellow employees and see all the stories about how unpleased they are. But one employee chose. He goes, approaches, and does the work this manager needs. He researches and presents suggestions like how to improve. On that day, this manager walks to Dr. Covey and says, you know, Steven, this man, he not only did the work what he's supposed to do, he did extensive research and also suggested me. So his research is in accordance with his suggestions, and the suggestions are in accordance with his research. That is superb. And during the next meeting, the same goes. He says you do this, and you do this work. But he turns to this man who tried to influence and asks, what is your opinion? See, that is the result when we try to influence. Everybody chose how this man is a dictator. We don't want to do that. But this man, he knew what the manager is. Not that he's blind to his, but he took a proactive role of how to influence. He gained, the manager gained, and everybody gained. Slowly, by looking at him, and initially they cursed this man who tried to influence, who was the odd man out in the team. But later, seeing the benefits, they also tried to slowly change and look at how we can contribute to the solution, how we can contribute to the improvement. So that is a way to improve our proactivity. I believe from today, I know, here I see two members who are taking a proactive role to be in these meetings more often from now on. Krishna and Venkatesh. And hope to see you more. And we all have, make it a slogan for you. I am responsible for my life. I am responsible for my happiness. Mr. Toastmaster.